Hello friends, Pastor Doug Batchelor. I thought it would be appropriate to do a little special report and give some pastoral insights to what's been happening in North America and even other parts of the world dealing with the increased violence, mass shootings, sometimes connected with racism. Just in 24 hours in Ohio and El Paso, there were 2 mass shootings. A little more than a week earlier in California, in Gilroy, innocent people were mowed down by just folks that are very disturbed, that didn't have the value of human life, went out just shooting innocent strangers. And you think, what's causing all of this? First, I'd like to say that my heart goes out in sympathy. I know something about the anguish of what it's like to have a phone call as a parent or a friend or a relative and hear that someone suddenly has passed away. To have it happen senselessly like this, it creates so much anguish and human woe in the families that lost these people. And they're in our prayers, and that's the most difficult thing. But there's also a bigger issue. What's at the core of a country or a people that are behaving this way? Well, for one thing, this did not take the Lord by surprise. Jesus said in the last days, because iniquity will abound, the love of many will wax cold. The Apostle Paul warned us in the last days that evil men and seducers will wax worse and worse, and folks will be lacking in natural affection. But I'm just stunned sometimes at the responses I hear in the media to these things. They're saying, well, the solution is that we just need more psychiatrists that can counsel these people that are struggling. And while I think there is a place for good Christian counsel and even the office of a psychiatrist, are you aware that psychiatrists have the highest rate of suicide of virtually any profession? Out of every 100,000 people, you have 65 psychiatrists that take their lives as compared with 11 among the general population. So I don't think having more psychiatrists is the problem. Others are saying, well, we just need to have more security, and at these public events we need more metal detectors. And I thought it was interesting. Last week our family went on a tour of the Ark Encounter there in Kentucky that was built by Answers in Genesis, and they had absolutely no security. And they just felt like, well, there is security there, but there was no metal detectors, no visible security guards. They have security cameras, but people felt incredibly safe, and it's largely because the folks that are going are believers that value human life. And people are saying, well, maybe we need more gun laws if we would just take away everybody's guns. But I seem to remember in the news that sometimes these villains hop in trucks and vehicles and go plowing through crowds. And no one is really saying what the real issue is. The real issue is that the people do not value human life. They're not being taught, thou shalt not kill. Several years ago, someone had the bright idea of not having the 10 Commandments in our schools anymore and taking them out of public places. And the Bible says in Hosea that if you sow the wind, you're going to reap the whirlwind. Now we are reaping a generation of people that don't have this value of human life. And if we're living in a society where we're telling the young people in school that there's really no purpose to their life, that they are the result of a bunch of biological accidents that have taken place randomly, and that we're living in a world where it is survival of the fittest, and if one creature can kill more of the other creature, they may survive better. If you send that message to young people, why would you be shocked if they go marching through crowds killing? That we've just evolved. There's no God, there's no purpose to life. Or if we're in a culture that is sending the message that human life has no value, and if you are pregnant with a baby and you may not want that baby, well, just kill it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Or at the end of a person's life, if they're sick and they're old and they're suffering, just get the doctor to put them out of their misery. And I understand there's some very difficult decisions people make when someone is dying painfully of cancer. I understand that. But we're basically saying that human life is not sacred when we're doing things that way. And the other thing, some of these things are racially motivated, and the Bible is so clear that it tells us in the book of Acts 17, verse 26, that He, God, has made from one blood every nation of men to dwell upon the earth. we are all people of one blood. Coming away from the Ark Encounter experience there, we were reminded as we went through that the whole world is related to Noah and his sons. We are all brothers and sisters. And if we're not teaching this to our children in the families, in the Bible, you remember when Miriam was pushing the envelope, she was not happy. It says in Numbers 12:1, and she and Aaron spoke against Moses because he had married an Ethiopian woman. Well, God showed how he felt about that because Miriam was punished, as was Aaron, for their racism. And even among the apostles, you can see in Acts chapter 10, when the apostles were supposed to be sharing the gospel among the Gentiles, they were reluctant to do this because they felt that the Gentiles were inferior, and God had to give Peter that vision of the sheet coming down, and he said that we are not supposed to call any man unclean. The Lord is very clear that all of us are children of God and that we are all brothers and sisters. And I'm proud. I came home last night and I said to Karen, "Where's our youngest son?" She said he's at his best friend's house, who is a black young man. And I think it begins in the families where you raise your children to know that we are all brothers and sisters and that we all might look differently and have different cultures and idiosyncrasies. And these are beautiful and interesting things. But we all love each other and we're valued equally because God paid the same price for every human being. The blood of his son was given for every human being. And so we should treasure that value and respect that value. And I'm just really surprised and I'm disheartened that nobody is addressing that one of the central problems that is taking place that's causing this breakdown, of course, is a rejection of biblical values in the home. Now, when I said that we should be teaching the Ten Commandments in our society, I think we ought to be doing it the way our founding fathers did it. Roger Williams made it very clear that no government should enforce the first 4 commandments. All people should be taught all 10. But every individual needs to decide, who is God, when to worship him, what he looks like, what his name is, the day to worship him. The first 4 commandments are really a personal decision. But no government can survive that does not enforce the last 6 commandments. And we're seeing an erosion of the value of life. Thou shalt not kill. We're seeing the erosion of the family. Thou shalt not commit adultery. The distinction between male and female. We're living in a culture that is just rampant in degrading men being men, acting strong. The old idea of a man as the strong protector and provider and the person with principles that leads the children. And men are being so degraded in their families. They're losing responsibility. They're abandoning their families. Children are growing up in families where they don't have a father and a mother. And you might be interested to know that the vast majority of these mass shooters, they're men, they're boys. And they have come from families that did not have a father or a broken home. And so maybe we ought to go back and take a better look at the central principles in the Bible, and we'll find some answers for these things and not say what we really need is more psychiatrists. Yeah, there is mental illness in our society. There is valid mental illness. There are some people who are plain old demon possessed because they don't have God in their families, in their lives, and in the country. And so, once again, we're seeing a principle that you reap what you sow. And as a country, as a government, in our families, we are sowing the wind and we are reaping the whirlwind. The answer is we've got to turn back to God. I want to make a special offer available that I think would provide some answers. And in connection with this video, you can just click on the link and it's America and the 10 Commandments. And by my friend Anthony Lester, if you click on the link, you can download a free copy of this. And I hope you'll also like the Amazing Facts YouTube posts and share this with your friends. Thank you. Let's be praying for the people who are suffering from this violence. And it's not just the mass shootings, it's the gang violence that is killing even more people every day in our country. We need to learn to rediscover the sacred value of every human life because Jesus has paid for them.